William Mitchell had always prided himself on being observant. As a senior project manager at Henderson and Associates, a prestigious consulting firm in downtown Chicago, he had built his career on noticing the small details that others missed. It was this same attention to detail that first made him suspicious of his colleague Andrew Chen's recent behavior. The morning started like any other Tuesday in March. William arrived at the office early, clutching his usual black coffee and scanning through emails on his phone as he walked through the glass doors of the 32nd floor. The Chicago skyline stretched endlessly beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows, but William barely noticed the view anymore. He had been working at Henderson and Associates for 8 years, and the impressive cityscape had long since become background noise to his daily routine. Andrew's desk sat directly across from William's in the open-plan office space. They had worked together on numerous projects over the past 3 years, developing what William considered a solid professional relationship. Andrew was known for his methodical approach to data analysis and his ability to spot trends that others overlooked. He was also remarkably punctual, arriving each morning at exactly 8:15 and following the same routine without fail. That Tuesday morning, however, Andrew's desk remained empty well past 9 o'clock. William found this unusual but not immediately alarming. People occasionally ran late due to traffic or personal emergencies. What struck him as odd was that Andrew hadn't sent any message explaining his absence, something he always did when delayed. When Andrew finally arrived at 9:45, he appeared flustered and distracted. His usually neat appearance was slightly disheveled, his tie askew, and there was an urgency in his movements that William had never observed before. Andrew quickly settled at his desk and immediately began typing furiously on his laptop, his eyes darting occasionally toward the executive offices at the far end of the floor. William tried to focus on his own work, but something about Andrew's behavior nagged at him. During their morning team meeting, Andrew seemed distant and preoccupied. When their supervisor, Margaret Torres, asked for updates on the quarterly client reports, Andrew stumbled through his presentation, clearly unprepared despite being known for his thorough preparation. The first real red flag came during lunch break. William was returning from the cafeteria when he noticed Andrew standing near the elevator bank, speaking quietly into his phone. The conversation appeared intense, with Andrew frequently looking over his shoulder and speaking in hushed tones. When Andrew spotted William approaching, he abruptly ended the call and quickly walked in the opposite direction. Over the following days, William began to notice a pattern. Andrew would receive certain phone calls that caused him to step away from his desk, always moving to areas where he couldn't be easily overheard. He started leaving the office for extended periods during lunch breaks, claiming to have doctor's appointments or personal errands. Most significantly, Andrew began staying late in the office, long after most employees had gone home. William's suspicions deepened when he returned to the office one evening to retrieve a file he had forgotten. The building was nearly empty, with only the security guard and cleaning staff present. As he walked through the darkened corridors toward his desk, he noticed a light coming from the conference room near the executive offices. Through the glass walls, he could see Andrew sitting alone, surrounded by stacks of documents and files. The documents spread across the conference table weren't from any project William recognized. They appeared to be financial records, client contracts, and what looked like internal company communications. Andrew was photographing the documents with his phone, systematically working through each pile. When he finished with a document, he would carefully return it to its exact original position. William ducked behind a nearby pillar, his heart racing as he tried to process what he was witnessing. Andrew was clearly accessing confidential company information without authorization. The implications were staggering. Was Andrew planning to leave the company and take sensitive information with him? Was he selling corporate secrets to competitors? Or was something even more sinister taking place? From his hidden position, William watched as Andrew continued his methodical documentation process. The younger man worked with practiced efficiency, suggesting this wasn't his first time engaging in such activities. After nearly an hour, Andrew began carefully reorganizing the documents back into their original files and folders. He then made several phone calls, speaking in low tones that William couldn't decipher from his distance. As Andrew prepared to leave the conference room, William quickly retreated to a nearby stairwell to avoid being discovered. He waited until he heard the elevator doors close before emerging from his hiding spot. The conference room was now dark and appeared exactly as it had before Andrew's late-night session. The next morning, William struggled to concentrate on his work. Andrew behaved normally, greeting colleagues with his usual friendly demeanor and participating in meetings as if nothing unusual had occurred. This normalcy only made William more suspicious. How long had Andrew been accessing confidential files? What was he doing with the information he was gathering? William began discreetly observing Andrew's activities more closely. He noticed that Andrew had developed relationships with employees in different departments, particularly those who had access to sensitive information. Andrew would often engage these colleagues in casual conversations about ongoing projects, client relationships, and company policies. What initially appeared to be friendly workplace interactions now seemed calculated and purposeful. During a coffee break, William overheard Andrew speaking with Janet Morrison from the accounting department. Andrew was asking detailed questions about the company's largest clients and their billing arrangements. When Janet mentioned that certain client files were restricted access, Andrew showed particular interest in which employees had authorization to view these files. The conversation troubled William because Andrew's current projects didn't require access to accounting information. His work focused primarily on market research and client satisfaction surveys. There was no legitimate reason for him to be inquiring about billing arrangements or restricted client files. William faced a difficult decision. Should he confront Andrew directly about his suspicious behavior? Should he report his concerns to management immediately? Or should he gather more evidence before taking action? The corporate world was filled with politics and misunderstandings, and William didn't want to destroy a colleague's career based on speculation and circumstantial evidence. He decided to document Andrew's suspicious activities while looking for opportunities to gather more concrete evidence. William began keeping detailed notes about Andrew's unusual phone calls, extended absences, and late-night office visits. He also started paying attention to Andrew's computer activities, noting when he accessed certain databases or printed documents that seemed unrelated to his assigned projects. The breakthrough came the following Friday afternoon. Andrew left his desk briefly to attend a meeting in another department, leaving his computer unlocked and accessible. William knew this presented an ethical dilemma, but his concerns about potential corporate espionage outweighed his reservations about privacy. Quickly glancing around to ensure no one was watching, William moved to Andrew's desk and scanned the open browser windows on his computer. Most of the tabs appeared work-related, but one caught his attention immediately. Andrew had been researching competitor companies, specifically their recent client acquisitions and market strategies. More concerning, he had been accessing internal Henderson and Associates databases that weren't related to his current projects. William noticed that Andrew had bookmarked several websites for job search platforms and had apparently been researching positions at competing firms. This discovery painted a clearer picture of Andrew's potential motivations. He might be planning to leave Henderson and Associates and was gathering valuable information to make himself more attractive to competitors. However, Williams' investigation also revealed something unexpected. Among Andrew's research materials were documents related to potential irregularities in company financial reporting. Andrew had been examining discrepancies between client billing records and reported revenue figures. Some of the files contained handwritten notes questioning certain accounting practices and client relationships. This discovery complicated Williams' understanding of the situation significantly. Was Andrew engaging in corporate espionage for personal gain, or had he uncovered legitimate concerns about company practices? The possibility that Andrew was investigating potential financial misconduct within Henderson and Associates added an entirely new dimension to his suspicious behavior. William realized he needed to be extremely careful about how he proceeded. If Andrew was indeed uncovering financial irregularities, Reporting him to management might inadvertently protect individuals engaged in unethical practices. On the other hand, if Andrew was planning to sell confidential information to competitors, allowing his activities to continue could cause significant damage to the company and its clients. The weight of this knowledge began to affect William's daily routine. He found himself constantly watching Andrew, analyzing every conversation and interaction for hidden meanings. The stress of maintaining his normal work performance while conducting his unofficial investigation was becoming overwhelming. William decided he needed help understanding the legal and ethical implications of the situation. That weekend, he contacted his brother-in-law, Marcus, who worked as a corporate attorney in Milwaukee. Without revealing specific names or company details, William described the situation and asked for advice about how to handle potential corporate misconduct. Marcus explained that corporate espionage cases were complex and often involved multiple layers of wrongdoing. He emphasized the importance of protecting any potential whistleblower while also ensuring that legitimate corporate interests were safeguarded. Marcus advised William to document everything carefully and consider reporting his concerns to both internal management and external regulatory authorities if necessary. Armed with this advice, William returned to work on Monday with a clearer sense of purpose. He would continue gathering evidence while also looking for opportunities to understand Andrew's true motivations. The key would be finding a way to approach Andrew directly without alerting him to the ongoing investigation. The opportunity presented itself sooner than expected. On Tuesday morning, William noticed Andrew seemed particularly stressed and distracted. During their lunch break, William suggested they grab coffee together, something they had done occasionally in the past. Andrew initially hesitated, but eventually agreed, perhaps grateful for any semblance of normalcy in his increasingly complicated situation. At the coffee shop, William carefully steered the conversation toward workplace topics, hoping to gauge Andrew's current state of mind. Andrew seemed nervous and preoccupied, frequently checking his phone and glancing around the crowded cafe. When William mentioned recent changes in company policies, Andrew's reaction was unusually intense. Andrew began expressing concerns about certain business practices at Henderson & Associates, speaking in vague terms about potential problems he had observed. He seemed to be testing whether William shared his concerns or might be sympathetic to his situation. The conversation revealed that Andrew was indeed troubled by what he had discovered, but he remained cryptic about specific details. William realized that Andrew might be looking for an ally or confidant within the company. This presented both an opportunity and a risk. If William could gain Andrew's trust, he might learn the full scope of the situation and help guide events toward a positive resolution. However, becoming too involved might compromise his ability to remain objective and protect the company's legitimate interests. As they returned to the office, William made a decision that would change the course of events for everyone involved. He would approach Andrew more directly, offering support while also trying to understand the complete picture. What William didn't realize was that his investigation had not gone unnoticed and that other forces within the company were already moving to address the situation in ways that would soon involve people he cared about most. The following Wednesday morning brought an unexpected development that would forever change William's perspective on the situation. As he arrived at his desk with his usual morning coffee, he found a sealed envelope with his name written in unfamiliar handwriting. Inside was a brief note that simply read, "Conference Room B, 7 p.m. tonight. Come alone. Important information about your investigation." The note was unsigned, but William immediately suspected it was from Andrew. Throughout the day, William struggled to focus on his regular duties. The mysterious note suggested that Andrew was aware of William's surveillance activities, which could mean either that Andrew wanted to confess or that William had walked into a carefully laid trap. The uncertainty gnawed at him as he mechanically worked through client reports and attended routine meetings. At 6:30 that evening, William remained at his desk as most of his colleagues departed for the day. The office gradually emptied until only a handful of employees remained, working late on urgent projects. William gathered his courage and made his way toward Conference Room B, which was located in a quieter section of the floor, away from the main work areas. As he approached the conference room, William noticed that the lights were already on and someone was indeed waiting inside. However, when he opened the door, he was surprised to find not Andrew, but Kate Richardson, the company's director of internal compliance. Kate was a respected executive who had been with Henderson and Associates for over 12 years, known for her meticulous attention to detail and unwavering ethical standards. Kate looked up from a stack of documents spread across the conference table and gestured for William to take a seat. Her expression was serious, and the atmosphere in the room felt heavy with unspoken tension. William realized immediately that this meeting would be far more significant than he had anticipated. Kate began by explaining that the company had been conducting its own internal investigation into suspicious activities within the organization. For the past 6 weeks, the compliance department had been monitoring unusual access patterns in their computer systems, unexplained document retrievals, and irregular employee behavior. William's recent activities had not gone unnoticed, but rather than viewing him as a potential threat, Kate had identified him as someone who might have valuable information about the situation. The revelation that Henderson and Associates was already investigating potential misconduct both relieved and concerned William. He was grateful that his concerns were being taken seriously, but he worried about the implications for Andrew and potentially for himself. Kate assured him that his cooperation would be viewed favorably, but she needed complete honesty about everything he had observed. William proceeded to share his detailed observations about Andrew's behavior over the past several weeks. He described the late-night document photography sessions, the suspicious phone calls, and the research into competitor companies. Kate listened intently, occasionally asking clarifying questions or requesting specific dates and times. As William spoke, Kate began pulling documents from her stack and showing him evidence that corroborated his observations. The company's IT security team had been tracking unauthorized database access attempts, many of which corresponded to times when Andrew was working late in the office. They had also identified several instances where sensitive client files had been accessed outside of normal business procedures. However, Kate's next revelation surprised William completely. The investigation had uncovered that Andrew was not working alone. Security camera footage and computer logs suggested that at least 2 other employees were involved in the unauthorized information gathering. More troubling, some of the access documents contained highly confidential strategic plans and client relationship details that could cause significant damage to the company if shared with competitors. Kate showed William several photographs taken from security cameras positioned throughout the office. The images clearly showed Andrew meeting with 2 other individuals in various locations around the building. One person William recognized as Derek Santos from the Information Technology Department, while the other appeared to be someone from outside the company entirely. The scope of the situation was far larger than William had imagined. What he had initially viewed as one employee's questionable behavior was apparently part of a coordinated effort involving multiple people and potentially extending beyond the company itself. Kate explained that the external individual in the photographs had been identified as a representative from Blackstone Consulting, one of Henderson and Associates' primary competitors. Kate's investigation had also revealed financial irregularities that connected to Andrew's activities. Several client accounts showed billing discrepancies that aligned with times when Andrew had accessed accounting databases. The compliance team suspected that information about these irregularities was being used either to manipulate internal processes or to provide competitors with insights into Henderson and Associates' pricing strategies and profit margins. William felt overwhelmed by the complexity of what Kate was revealing. His simple observation of a colleague's strange behavior had uncovered what appeared to be a sophisticated corporate espionage operation with potential financial fraud components. He began to understand why Kate had approached him directly rather than simply conducting the investigation through normal security channels. Kate explained that the company needed someone inside the situation who could continue monitoring Andrew's activities without arousing suspicion. William's existing relationship with Andrew and his demonstrated observational skills made him an ideal candidate for this role. However, Kate emphasized that this would require William to maintain his normal interactions with Andrew while secretly gathering intelligence for the compliance team. The ethical implications of this request troubled William significantly. He would essentially be spying on a colleague who might trust him, while also potentially putting himself at risk if the situation escalated. Kate acknowledged these concerns, but stressed that the investigation needed to move quickly to prevent further damage to the company and its clients. To address William's concerns, Kate provided him with detailed legal protections and assured him that his cooperation would be documented officially to protect him from any potential retaliation. She also explained that the investigation had reached a point where external law enforcement might need to become involved, depending on what additional evidence they could gather. Kate showed William copies of several documents that Andrew had apparently photographed and shared with external contacts. These included detailed client lists, pricing information, strategic planning documents, and internal communications between senior executives. The value of this information to competitors was substantial, and its unauthorized disclosure represented serious violations of both company policies and potentially federal laws regarding corporate espionage. The most shocking revelation came when Kate showed William evidence that some of the stolen information had already been used by competitors to undercut Henderson and Associates in recent client proposals. 3 major contracts that the company had expected to win were instead awarded to competitors who submitted proposals with pricing and service offerings that seemed impossibly well-informed about Henderson and Associates strategies. William realized that the situation had moved far beyond simple corporate misconduct. Real financial damage was occurring, and the company's competitive position was being systematically undermined. The theft of information was not just theoretical. It was actively harming the business and potentially threatening the job security of all employees. Kate outlined the next phase of the investigation, which would require William's active participation. They needed to document Andrew's meetings with external contacts, identify all internal employees involved in the scheme, and gather sufficient evidence to support potential criminal charges. This would involve William wearing a recording device during conversations with Andrew and potentially participating in controlled meetings designed to elicit incriminating statements. The prospect of actively deceiving Andrew troubled William deeply. Despite Andrew's apparent wrongdoing, William still viewed him as a colleague and felt conflicted about betraying that relationship. Kate understood these concerns, but emphasized that Andrew's actions were harming innocent people throughout the company, including William himself. Kate also revealed that the investigation had personal implications for William that he hadn't considered. As a senior project manager, William had been involved in several of the client relationships that were targeted by the espionage activities. His own work product and strategic contributions have been compromised and shared with competitors. In a very real sense, Andrew had been stealing from William personally, not just from the company. This personal dimension of the situation helped William rationalize his cooperation with the investigation. He was not simply betraying a colleague. He was protecting his own professional interests and those of all the other employees who were being harmed by the unauthorized information sharing. Kate provided William with a small digital recording device and detailed instructions for its use. She also gave him specific conversation topics to explore with Andrew, designed to elicit information about his external contacts and the scope of the information sharing activities. William would continue his normal work routine while looking for opportunities to gather evidence during natural interactions with Andrew. The meeting concluded with Kate emphasizing the importance of maintaining absolute secrecy about their conversation and the ongoing investigation. She warned William that if Andrew or his accomplices became aware of the investigation, they might accelerate their activities or destroy evidence before law enforcement could intervene. As William left conference room B that evening, his mind raced with the implications of everything he had learned. The simple observation that had started his investigation had evolved into something far more complex and serious than he could have imagined. He was now an active participant in a corporate espionage investigation that could result in criminal charges and significantly impact the lives of multiple people. Walking to his car in the nearly empty parking garage, William reflected on how quickly his ordinary work routine had been transformed into something resembling a corporate thriller. The familiar surroundings of his workplace now felt different, charged with hidden tensions and secret agendas that he was only beginning to understand. The drive home gave William time to process the evening's revelations and prepare himself mentally for the challenging role he would need to play in the coming days. He would need to maintain his friendship with Andrew while secretly working to expose Andrew's illegal activities. The psychological pressure of this double life would be significant, but William understood that the stakes were too high for him to refuse Kate's request for cooperation. As he pulled into his driveway, William realized that his investigation had reached a point of no return. The information he now possessed made him a key witness in a potentially criminal case, and his actions in the coming days would significantly impact the outcome. The responsibility felt overwhelming, but William also felt a sense of purpose in knowing that his efforts were protecting the company and his fellow employees from further harm. That night, William lay awake considering all the ways the situation could develop over the coming days. Would Andrew become suspicious of increased scrutiny? Would the other accomplices realize that their activities had been detected? And, most importantly, would William be able to gather the evidence needed to bring the espionage activities to an end before additional damage occurred? The answers to these questions would soon become clear, as events were already in motion that would test William's courage and resolve in ways he never could have anticipated when he first noticed Andrew's unusual behavior weeks earlier. The next morning arrived with an unusual sense of urgency that William had never experienced in his 8 years at Henderson & Associates. Armed with the recording device Kate had provided and a clear mission to gather evidence, William approached his workday with a mixture of determination and anxiety. The familiar office environment now felt like a stage where he was performing a crucial role in an unfolding drama. Andrew arrived at his usual time, but William immediately noticed subtle changes in his demeanor. Andrew seemed more cautious, frequently glancing around the office and paying particular attention to who was nearby when he made phone calls. This heightened awareness suggested that Andrew might be sensing increased scrutiny, although he gave no direct indication that he suspected William specifically. William's first opportunity to engage Andrew in conversation came during the morning coffee break. As they stood in the break room, William carefully steered the conversation toward recent workplace changes and company policies. Andrew responded with more interest than usual, particularly when William mentioned rumors about increased security measures and management's concerns about information leaks. The recording device captured Andrew's responses as he expressed frustration with what he termed corporate paranoia and management's distrust of hard-working employees. Andrew's comments revealed a defensive attitude and suggested that he viewed the company's legitimate security concerns as unreasonable restrictions on employee freedom. More significantly, Andrew made several comments that indicated knowledge of information he shouldn't have had access to through his normal work responsibilities. When William mentioned a recent client meeting that had been confidential to senior management, Andrew demonstrated awareness of details that hadn't been shared publicly within the company. During lunch, William suggested they eat together at a nearby restaurant where they could speak more privately. Andrew agreed, perhaps viewing this as an opportunity to gauge William's loyalties or gather information about potential investigations. The restaurant setting provided better audio quality for the recording device and allowed for a more natural conversation flow. Andrew's behavior during lunch confirmed many of William's suspicions while revealing new aspects of the situation. Andrew spoke about feeling undervalued at Henderson & Associates and expressed concerns about the company's long-term stability. He hinted at opportunities elsewhere in the industry and seemed to be testing whether William might be interested in exploring external options. Most importantly, Andrew made several references to information that could only have come from confidential company sources. He mentioned specific details about competitor strategies, client relationship challenges, and internal financial discussions that weren't part of his regular work responsibilities. When William asked how he had learned about these matters, Andrew became evasive and quickly changed the subject. The conversation also revealed Andrew's emotional state, which was more complex than William had expected. Rather than appearing calculating or mercenary, Andrew seemed genuinely conflicted about his situation. He spoke about loyalty to colleagues while also expressing disappointment with company management and frustration with his career progression. During their walk back to the office, Andrew made an unexpected proposal. He suggested that William might benefit from knowing about certain opportunities that could improve his career prospects. Andrew offered to introduce William to some contacts who could provide valuable insights into industry trends and potential job openings at other firms. William realized that Andrew was attempting to recruit him into the espionage activities. This represented both a significant development in the investigation and a personal test of William's commitment to exposing the scheme. William expressed cautious interest while avoiding any direct commitment, hoping to learn more about Andrew's external contacts and the scope of their activities. That afternoon, William reported his progress to Kate through a secure communication channel they had established. Kate was pleased with the evidence gathering, but concerned about Andrew's apparent recruitment efforts. She warned William that the situation was becoming more dangerous as Andrew attempted to expand the network of collaborators. Kate shared additional intelligence that the compliance team had gathered independently. IT security had identified several attempted unauthorized access events that correlated with times when Andrew was in the office. More troubling, they had detected communications between Andrew's work computer and external email accounts that weren't associated with legitimate business activities. The investigation had also revealed the identity of Andrew's primary external contact. Michael Robertson was a former Henderson and Associates employee who had joined Blackstone Consulting 18 months earlier. Robertson had maintained relationships with several current employees and appeared to be coordinating the information-gathering efforts from outside the company. Kate explained that law enforcement was now being consulted about the investigation, given the evidence of systematic corporate espionage and potential criminal violations. This meant that William's role as an undercover information gatherer would need to produce concrete evidence quickly before external authorities took control of the situation. William's next assignment involved accepting Andrew's offer to meet his external contacts, but under controlled circumstances that would allow the compliance team to monitor and record the interactions. This represented a significant escalation in William's involvement and carried correspondingly greater risks. The meeting was arranged for the following evening at a restaurant downtown, ostensibly as a casual networking opportunity. Andrew seemed pleased that William had accepted the invitation and spent considerable time coaching him on what topics might be discussed and how to present himself favorably to the contacts. William noticed that Andrew's instructions included subtle suggestions about sharing information regarding current projects and client relationships. Andrew framed these suggestions as normal networking conversation, but William recognized them as attempts to prepare him to share confidential company information with outsiders. The evening of the meeting, William arrived at the designated restaurant with multiple recording devices and a detailed plan provided by Kate's compliance team. The location had been surveilled in advance, and several team members would be positioned nearby to provide support if the situation became dangerous. Andrew arrived with Michael Robertson and Derek Santos, the IT department employee William had seen in security camera footage. The group also included a woman introduced as Lisa Chun, who worked for another competing consulting firm. William realized he was being introduced to what appeared to be a network of individuals involved in systematic information sharing between competing companies. The dinner conversation initially focused on general industry topics and career development, but gradually shifted toward more specific discussions about current business challenges and competitive strategies. William observed how the group members skillfully extracted information from each other while presenting their own insights and intelligence. Robertson proved to be particularly skilled at guiding conversations toward valuable topics without appearing to be conducting interrogations. He demonstrated extensive knowledge about Henderson and Associates' internal operations and client relationships, clearly derived from information provided by Andrew and potentially other sources within the company. During the meal, William carefully followed Kate's instructions to gather evidence, while avoiding sharing any genuine confidential information. He provided responses that sounded substantive, but contained only publicly available information or details that wouldn't harm the company if shared. The most significant development occurred when Robertson explicitly offered William compensation for providing specific types of information about Henderson and Associates' upcoming client proposals and strategic planning initiatives. This direct solicitation of corporate espionage constituted clear evidence of criminal activity and was captured in detail by Williams' recording devices. Derek Santos also revealed information about his role in the scheme, explaining how his IT access allowed him to retrieve documents and data that other employees couldn't access directly. Santos seemed proud of his technical capabilities and eager to demonstrate his value to the group, inadvertently providing William with detailed evidence about the methods being used to steal company information. Lisa Chen's presence indicated that the espionage activities extended beyond just Henderson and Associates and Blackstone Consulting. She represented a third company that was apparently part of a broader network of firms sharing competitive intelligence through former employees and recruited current employees. As the evening progressed, William began to understand the full scope of what he had uncovered. This was not simply a case of one disgruntled employee sharing information with a competitor. Instead, it appeared to be a systematic corporate espionage network involving multiple companies and numerous individuals, operating with sophisticated coordination and clear criminal intent. The group's confidence in recruiting William suggested that they had successfully operated this network for an extended period without detection. Robertson mentioned several other associates who provided valuable information from their respective companies, implying that William would be joining an established and profitable enterprise. Near the end of the dinner, Robertson provided William with specific instructions for gathering and transmitting information, including technical details about secure communication methods and procedures for avoiding detection by company security systems. This information would prove invaluable for the compliance team's investigation and any subsequent law enforcement action. As the meeting concluded, William had gathered enough evidence to support serious criminal charges against multiple individuals. However, he also realized that his undercover role was becoming increasingly difficult to maintain. The group expected him to begin providing actual confidential information soon, and his failure to do so would likely expose the investigation. William left the restaurant with a clear understanding that events would need to move quickly to conclusion. The evidence he had gathered was substantial, but the personal risks were escalating rapidly. Andrew and his accomplices were expecting William to become an active participant in their criminal activities, and any hesitation or refusal would likely result in discovery of his true role. The drive home gave William time to reflect on how far the investigation had progressed since his initial observations of Andrew's suspicious behavior. What had started as concern about a colleague's unusual activities had evolved into a complex criminal case involving multiple companies and numerous individuals engaged in systematic corporate espionage. William understood that his actions over the next few days would be crucial in determining whether the espionage network could be dismantled before causing additional damage to Henderson and Associates and potentially other companies. The evidence he had gathered was significant, but the investigation was approaching a critical phase where his continued safety and effectiveness as an undercover operative could not be guaranteed. That night, William prepared for what he suspected would be the final phase of his involvement in the investigation, knowing that the revelations he would soon share with Kate and potentially with law enforcement would forever change the lives of several people he had come to know as colleagues and even friends. The morning after the restaurant meeting brought a sense of finality to William's investigation that he had been both anticipating and dreading. As he prepared for work, William knew that the evidence he had gathered would soon set in motion events that would permanently alter the lives of several people, including his own. The weight of this responsibility felt heavier than ever as he drove through the familiar Chicago streets toward Henderson and Associates. Kate had arranged an emergency meeting before regular business hours to review the recorded evidence from the previous evening. William arrived at the office at 6:30 in the morning, finding Kate already waiting in conference room B with two individuals he hadn't met previously. She introduced them as Agent Patricia Morrison from the Federal Bureau of Investigation's White Collar Crime Division and Detective James Rodriguez from the Chicago Police Department's Economic Crimes Unit. The presence of law enforcement officers made the situation feel suddenly more serious and official. William realized that his amateur investigation had evolved into a formal criminal case that would likely result in arrests and prosecutions. Agent Morrison explained that corporate espionage cases often involve violations of federal laws regarding trade secret theft and wire fraud, making FBI involvement appropriate and necessary. William provided the investigators with all of his recorded evidence from the restaurant meeting, along with detailed summaries of his observations over the past several weeks. Agent Morrison was particularly interested in Michael Robertson's explicit offers of compensation for confidential information and Derek Santos's descriptions of his methods for accessing restricted computer systems. Detective Rodriguez focused on the local aspects of the case, including the activities that had taken place within Henderson and Associates offices and the potential financial damages to the company. He explained that corporate espionage cases often involved both federal charges related to interstate commerce and local charges related to theft and fraud within the jurisdiction where the crimes occurred. Kate shared additional evidence that the compliance team had gathered independently, including computer logs showing unauthorized database access, security camera footage documenting after-hours activities, and financial records indicating irregular patterns in client billing and account management. The combination of Williams' undercover evidence and the company's internal investigation provided a comprehensive picture of the espionage activities. Agent Morrison explained the next phase of the investigation, which would involve coordinated arrests of all identified participants in the espionage network. This would require careful timing to prevent any individuals from destroying evidence or alerting accomplices who might not yet have been identified. William would need to maintain his normal routine for several more days while law enforcement prepared their operation. The investigators also revealed that Williams' information had helped them identify similar activities at other companies in the Chicago area. The espionage network apparently operated across multiple industries and involved dozens of individuals sharing confidential information between competing firms. Williams' investigation had uncovered just one component of a much larger criminal enterprise. William learned that his undercover role would continue for a few more days, but with additional safety precautions and backup support from law enforcement. Agent Morrison emphasized that Williams' cooperation had been essential to the investigation's success, but that his safety was now the paramount concern as the case moved toward prosecution. The most challenging aspect of the coming days would be maintaining normal interactions with Andrew while knowing that arrest warrants were being prepared. William would need to respond appropriately to any request for information or meetings while avoiding situations that might put him at risk if Andrew became suspicious of increased scrutiny. That morning, Andrew appeared at the office in an unusually positive mood, clearly pleased with the previous evening's meeting and optimistic about Williams' potential recruitment into the espionage network. He made several comments about upcoming opportunities and hinted at financial benefits that would soon be available to William if he proved himself reliable. William managed to maintain appropriate responses while feeling increasingly uncomfortable with the deception required by his undercover role. Andrew's apparent friendship and trust made the situation emotionally difficult, even though William understood that Andrew's illegal activities were harming the company and potentially threatening William's own career. During lunch, Andrew provided William with specific instructions for gathering information about an upcoming client proposal that Henderson and Associates was preparing. Andrew explained exactly what details would be most valuable to their contacts and provided technical instructions for securely transmitting the information. William realized that Andrew was now fully expecting him to commit corporate espionage, creating a situation that couldn't continue much longer without exposing the investigation. William reported this development to Kate, who consulted with law enforcement about accelerating the timeline for arrests. Agent Morrison decided that the situation had reached a point where William's safety could no longer be guaranteed, and that they had sufficient evidence to proceed with criminal charges against all identified participants. The next morning brought the culmination of the entire investigation in a series of coordinated arrests that began at dawn and continued throughout the day. William arrived at the office to find FBI agents and local police officers executing search warrants and taking several employees into custody, including Andrew, Derek Santos, and 3 other individuals whose involvement had been revealed during the investigation. The scene at Henderson & Associates was chaotic as employees tried to understand what was happening while law enforcement officers collected evidence and conducted interviews. William watched as Andrew was led away in handcuffs, looking confused and betrayed as he realized that his recruitment efforts had been instrumental in his own capture. Kate gathered all employees in the main conference room to explain the situation and provide guidance about cooperating with the ongoing investigation. She revealed that the company had been conducting an internal investigation into corporate espionage and had worked closely with law enforcement to identify and arrest the individuals responsible for stealing confidential information. William's role in the investigation remained confidential, known only to Kate, the compliance team, and law enforcement officials. This protection allowed William to continue his normal work responsibilities without dealing with the complications that might arise if his colleagues knew about his undercover activities. The aftermath of the arrests revealed the full extent of the damage caused by the espionage network. Financial analysis showed that Henderson & Associates had lost several major contracts due to competitors having access to confidential proposal information. The company estimated that the total financial impact exceeded $2 million in lost revenue and competitive disadvantage. More troubling, the investigation revealed that confidential client information had been shared with unauthorized parties, potentially exposing clients to competitive disadvantages and privacy violations. Several clients required notification about the data breaches and assurance that their confidential information would be better protected in the future. Michael Robertson's arrest at Blackstone Consulting created additional complications as investigators discovered that he had been operating similar espionage networks with contacts at numerous other companies throughout the Midwest. The case evolved into a major federal investigation involving multiple jurisdictions and dozens of potential defendants. Derek Santos's computer expertise had enabled many of the most serious violations, as he had developed sophisticated methods for accessing restricted systems and covering electronic trails. His arrest led to discovery of additional evidence that implicated several other individuals who had not been previously identified as participants in the espionage activities. William found the weeks following the arrests emotionally challenging as he processed his role in the investigation and its consequences for people he had known as colleagues. While he understood that his actions were necessary and legally justified, he struggled with feelings of guilt about the deception involved in gathering evidence against Andrew and the others. Agent Morrison helped William understand the broader significance of his contribution to the investigation. Corporate espionage was a serious economic crime that damaged businesses, eliminated jobs, and undermined fair competition. William's willingness to cooperate with the investigation had protected not only Henderson & Associates, but potentially numerous other companies that might have been targeted by the espionage network. The legal proceedings that followed provided additional validation for William's actions. Andrew, Derek Santos, and Michael Robertson all pleaded guilty to federal charges related to corporate espionage and agreed to cooperate with ongoing investigations into the broader criminal network. Their sentences included substantial prison terms and financial restitution to the companies that had been harmed by their activities. Kate recognized Williams' contributions to the investigation with a promotion to senior project manager and increased responsibilities in the company's enhanced security and compliance programs. Williams' attention to detail and integrity had prevented additional damage to the company and demonstrated the importance of employee vigilance in protecting corporate assets. The experience changed Williams' perspective on workplace relationships and corporate responsibility. He developed a deeper appreciation for the trust that existed between colleagues and the serious consequences when that trust was violated. William also gained insight into the complex ethical challenges that could arise in corporate environments and the importance of maintaining high standards of integrity even when faced with difficult personal decisions. Henderson and Associates implemented significant changes to their security procedures and employee monitoring systems based on lessons learned from the investigation. The company also developed new training programs to help employees identify and report suspicious activities that might indicate corporate espionage or other security threats. Williams' role in developing these new security measures drew upon his unique experience with the investigation and provided him with opportunities to contribute to the company's long-term success beyond his regular project management responsibilities. His colleagues viewed him as someone who had demonstrated exceptional dedication to the company's interests, although they remained unaware of the specific details of his undercover activities. The broader investigation continued for several months as law enforcement officials worked to identify and prosecute all participants in the espionage network. William provided testimony to federal grand juries and cooperated with prosecutors preparing cases against the various defendants. His evidence proved crucial in securing convictions and recovering financial damages for the affected companies. Looking back on the investigation, William reflected on how a simple observation about a colleague's unusual behavior had evolved into a complex criminal case with far-reaching implications. The experience taught him valuable lessons about trust, responsibility, and the importance of acting on ethical concerns even when the personal costs might be significant. The success of the investigation also demonstrated the effectiveness of cooperation between private companies and law enforcement agencies in addressing corporate crime. Williams' willingness to serve as an undercover operative had provided law enforcement with evidence that would have been difficult or impossible to obtain through other means. As normal operations resumed at Henderson & Associates, William found satisfaction in knowing that his actions had protected the company and its clients from further harm. The investigation had been personally challenging and emotionally difficult, but it had also provided him with a sense of purpose and accomplishment that enriched his understanding of his role within the organization. The files that had initially shocked Kate during the compliance investigation had ultimately led to a comprehensive resolution of the espionage activities and strengthened the company's security posture for the future. Williams' discovery of Andrew's secret meetings had set in motion events that protected not only Henderson & Associates, but numerous other companies that might have been victimized by the criminal network. Williams' experience served as a reminder that individual actions could have significant consequences for entire organizations, and that the responsibility for protecting corporate assets extended beyond formal security personnel to include all employees who remained vigilant about suspicious activities and willing to take appropriate action when ethical concerns arose.